This is We Are What We Overcome. What you're about to hear are the ramblings and reflections of three ordinary people, drawing on their own personal and occasionally professional experiences. These conversations are unprepared, subjective, and should not be taken as medical advice or instruction. Anyone seeking help should always carry out their own research, or better yet, speak to a professional about their circumstances.
Can I have some more? How's that come? How's that supposed to be again? I don't know. How's it coming through? Is it good? No. It's swiftly become South African as well, which is no good. Welcome to South.
Sure it does?
Yeah, because New Zealand's accent quickly becomes South Africa, because as all the vowels become even shorter and shorter, and suddenly you're talking about fucking prawns, and it's all very bad.
Someone once told me that the one accent is playing a record forwards quickly and the other one is playing it backwards.
Ooh.
But I can't do it justice what he said. So I shall get him to send me a recording.
Yes,
of it,
please do.
And then I will
That sounds
forward
great.
it to you.
We Are What We Overcome on this occasion features musician Matt McGuinness, improviser Nick Tyler, and psychotherapist Wes Evans. Sit back, enjoy, and remember, it's good to talk.
Okay, so welcome to another episode of We Are What We Overcome, the podcast. We're live and in person. You've travelled up to my neck of the woods.
You sound somewhat different to me this
I?
month. Yeah.
What is it?
More assured, more traditionally focused within yourself.
Just
And that's something
happier,
happened at
maybe.
last year.
Yeah,
Maybe
maybe.
happier.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's our subject for today, which we'll get into in a little minute. But we're on location. We try and meet in different places every time, don't we?
Nice.
And so today we are in a little secret bar at the back of Campo Blanco. The bar's called Campito. There's quite a novel entrance on the way in, but we have to keep that a secret, I think.
Yeah, that's probably for legal
The
reasons.
nature of the entrance, yeah. So we can't tell you about that, otherwise
It's
we
the kind of bar when we walked in, we thought we should have just stayed somewhere close by and spent the evening there,
Yes, and drank whiskey. So
Yeah.
I think it's designed with a bit of a speakeasy vibe in mind, actually.
Does
Works.
that.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about happiness. We realise that it's very easy to cover a lot of depressing sounding mental health topics, and we talked about before that it's easy to focus on like being depressed or being sad or being angry, and yet good mental health is just as important as bad mental health.
Oh, let's be fair, when we brought up happiness, you said, does it actually really exist? So that is the
well.
negative side of happiness.
Well,
Okay.
I feel obliged to bring in
Ever the skeptic.
yeah. I want to bring in that negative angle to whatever we talk about.
Well, that's an interesting point, because usually when we come up with a topic, we try and think, well, what angle are we taking on this? And specifically, what are we focusing on? But today we've kind of settled on that there isn't necessarily a focus. That
Perhaps
maybe we're
not.
just going to see where it takes us.
Yeah, I imagine it will lead us to some focused point.
What is happiness? And
Why
and
is
go
it?
from there, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be our general topic. But before we get into that, we're going to have a little bit of check-in, as we always do, to make sure that we are in a place suitable for recording a podcast.
Make sure we're all happy.
Well, no, so wow, that seems like a high bar. Let's not push ourselves, Wes. Matt, how are you?
I'm good. I was having a long put-off date night with my very much better half, and lots of things seem to get together over the last week to try and stop that happening, like children getting ill and so selfish, aren't they? And the van breaking down, and then finally on the day the car breaking down. But the AA came along and fixed it pretty quick.
Hooray!
There are other providers of that sort of thing out there. They're just not very good.
It's turned out well in the end, then.
So yeah, it was good. Yeah. How who's going to go? How are you?
How
Nick?
am I? I am also pretty good, actually. I'm busy with work. It's been lots of rushing around and stuff, so I am frequently engrossed in activities, which is usually a good state for me to be in, because it leaves me unable to think about other things and free of sort of distractions, which I find generally quite positive. So yeah, I'm all right. What about you, Wes?
Some would say that work is the distraction, though, Nick.
Where I don't know. I just remember being told at school, work makes you free. That's all I remember.
Who said that?
A very popular teacher.
Don't go there.
No, don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty good, yeah. You said I'm sounding more assured or something there.
Yeah, I was alluding to something.
Oh, yeah. Well, since we last spoke, I got married. So I'm now Mr. Evans. Feels strange to say that.
What were you
but,
before? Were you Master Evans? Squire Evans.
Yeah, Squire Evans. Yeah, yeah. So I was married, and we also we
was
we,
married.
I was married.
Oh,
Yes,
right,
it
so
happened.
became
Yes.
married.
I became married.
Became
Yeah, I still am married.
Good.
I was married by a man in Scotland, and then we came down and had a after party as well. So we milked it for all it was worth, as you should.
And we're going for the third party in Edinburgh, aren't we, in August? as well?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
brilliant.
Another
this
one
thing
of our another one of our live meetup recordings. Yeah. So stay tuned for that one.
So that's good. I wouldn't stay tuned. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, well,
between-
you'll be waiting quite a while. Yeah. Already, just in this silly little intro round, we've kind of made some parallels to the topic that we're talking about there. About it turned out well in the end, which might be a good. I mean, imagine if that was what you said at the end of your life. Well, it turned out well in the end.
Yeah, I mean, good enough. I
Yeah,
think is what I'm going
yeah.
for. That will be fine.
Work will set you free.
But happiness does feel like it feels different to the other emotions. We're talking about the idea that you might have someone if they're sad or they're angry, but happy tends to be kind of have a relationship to something else. There's an assumption that there's different aspects of your life that make you happy. Like, are you happy in your work? Are you happy in your home life? Rather than just like happy in general, which always makes me wonder if we've accepted that being just happy is too high a bar. There's too much to do. So you want to like bring it down to one specific part of your life.
I think it feels like the status quo, doesn't it? Because everyone assumes everyone is happy. It's like the starting point, because then if you're not happy, there's something wrong with you, or do you know what I mean? It feels like
That's a good point. Yeah,
the
So,
common
like,
denominator.
it should be the default.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then we have to check why and what's going
Yeah.
on.
Well,
kind of
that's
thing.
interesting because I would have thought that being happy was on. If we put emotions on a spectrum, I wouldn't put happy like in the middle, because where are you going after that? Happy surely is like the opposite of being very depressed and very anxious, rather than like somewhere in the middle. Where do you go from happy? You just go to like, I don't know,
Yeah.
ecstatic or hypermanic or something.
So you're thinking about it as like a linear kind of spectrum there.
Maybe. I mean, I would certainly feel it as being, if not an opposite, then somehow very opposed to all those negative things. I can't think of many like positive emotions. Yeah, there's being happy. There's being.
Are they all just
joyful.
versions of being
Yeah,
happy?
exactly. It's like you're content. Well, what does that mean? Is it just mean you're not miserable? I don't know what it sits in opposition to. Is it a thing that you can achieve?
Well, let's start with that. So why don't we go around and see what everyone thinks happiness is, and what are we talking about when we're thinking about happiness?
I know. I was thinking about this. So Matt asked me in the car. I was like, "Well, when were you last happy?" I went, "I don't know." I feel like it's something that you think of in retrospect. Where you're like, "Oh, I was really happy when I was on that holiday."
Well,
doing something
does that mean you didn't realise it at the time?
Yeah, for me it feels kind of wedded to some sort of nostalgic sense. Because I'm not sure if I ever stop and go, "Ooh, I just feel really happy."
That's a
doesn't-
shame.
I do it quite a lot.
Do you, oh my god! Well, great. Well, I'm happy for you.
See, at the moment you're happy.
So happy for you. My
Are
life.
you
sucks.
happy at the moment?
That sounded
No, I don't-
that sounded loaded with sarcasm. I don't believe that he is actually
Really?
happy for
Yeah.
you.
I don't know. God, that sounds bleak, doesn't it? To say like, I don't know if I ever think of myself as being like happy in a moment, but I do feel aware of not being like stressed or anxious sometimes.
Well, there you go. So there's happy moments within the context of feeling lots of other things at the same time, and
I
then
guess then it's not a thing on its
or
own.
then
is
there's
it?
a happy period of time generally, or
Yeah, like you imagine a golden age of our lives, which if you go back and investigate, it was actually riddled with nightmares and stress. But you can have a happy memory of something that wasn't really happy.
I was thinking actually about we were talking before about back in time when you're younger and what and stuff, and I think I probably just didn't even think about it. It wasn't whether I was happy or not. I just didn't even bother to contemplate it. It didn't really matter.
well, maybe the ironic thing is you were probably happier for not thinking about it.
Yeah, because it becomes a goal, doesn't it? It becomes all I really want is to be happy. Well, I have no idea what that means.
You said something before as well about depression and happiness, and I think I don't really associate the two. Do you know what I mean?
You don't think they're like opposites?
No.
Can you be happy while being depressed?
Yeah, I think so.
Or happy in your depression?
Well, not in the same second, but you can be generally. I mean, I could be happy in a day, and there could be points when I'm feeling quite depressed within that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that's that kind of flitting between things. But then you could also think back to like a happy period of time, could you? Do you think, perhaps? And of course, you weren't constantly happy.
Yeah. So I think with the happiness, and I can be depressed, but still think I'm not. Do you know? I'm not unhappy. It's a different thing to me. Being unhappy is. I think being unhappy, I could focus on there was something I was unhappy about, whereas depression is not.
Well, yes,
like
I get that.
Well, what? Well, I know we're still trying to define what happiness is. Well, what's unhappiness then? Because that doesn't sound like the same thing from what you just said.
Is it
'Cause
the
I was
absence of happiness?
Yeah,
Didn't
yeah,
you say
which-
earlier when you were talking
everything
about it
else
in the
is-
car, you were kind of saying maybe happy is the absence of all of the negative stuff?
Yeah, so if you're
That's his high point of positivity there.
all
The
I'm-
glass
Well,
ain't half
today
full,
didn't go that
but
badly.
it's
All I'm
still
looking
all
for-
over the
yeah,
table, so
yeah.
it must be all right.
what I desire is grim nihilist neutral. That's what I'm looking for. That's my version of happy. But I don't know. What would you think, Wes? Yeah,
I'm
what's
happy.
happiness
Are
for
you really happy? Are you sure?
No, I think I think you're all lying to me
Have
about
you
being
thought
happy.
about it?
I don't know. I probably I probably just shift into being a little bit too theoretical about it. Just like thinking about, well, what is it then? And I mean, obviously, I speak with lots of people all the time around well-being and different things. And I suppose it's fair to say usually someone would come to speak to me if there's a specific issue that they want to address or something they want to overcome. But I can say I probably have heard many people at different times saying, I just want to be happy. And I think usually they're kind of saying, well, I just want to be all right with what I've got, or I just want things to be okay. But it's still quite vague, isn't it?
It's quite vague and feels like that's a really low bar for it. I want
kind of
I
does.
want my life to not suck, which is not an unreasonable goal. That seems like an entirely justifiable thing to go for. But that idea, I want to be happy with what I've got, feels more.
I hear the word content being chucked in alongside it quite a lot.
I like content.
Yeah.
I think content feels good.
Happy and content. So kind of, I suppose the context in which I've heard it in is, okay, yeah, this is going on, yeah, this is going on, but I wish I wasn't so kind of affected by that and that. What I would like is to be able to appreciate all of these other things that I know are good on paper. Why can't I just be happy and content with it, kind of thing? So it suggests that the barrier is me in response to all of this stuff.
It is you in response to it, because if you had, you could easily see how two people could have the same good things happening in their life.
Yes.
One could think they were happy, and the other person would think that.
Exactly. So there's definitely something about my response to the world kind of affecting my happiness. I actually was doing a little bit of looking around and thinking about this in anticipation of this topic. And something I found quite interesting that comes up time and time again is these 3 key theories of happiness. Do you want to hear them?
I do.
So the first one is something called hedonism theory. So basically, a happy person is one whose life has more pleasure than pain. So that's kind of like looking at the overall picture, I suppose, isn't it?
I like that.
If it's mostly good, then you're a happy person.
And that also doesn't imply, because I think the way happiness is used a lot of time implies some kind of like a state to be in of like constant joy or something.
Yeah,
And
so
that
as it
makes-
expands on it, it talks a little bit about that
Okay,
kind of
alright,
thing as
I'll
well,
stop
about
interrupting.
like that they're in a happy state, and generally they are joyful and that kind of thing. So there's one thing. There's another one called desire theory, which is talking about if your desires are satisfied, you're happy.
Yep.
So getting what you want, I suppose. So that kind of fits in with maybe people having goals and ambitions and meeting them.
Are billionaires really happy?
Well,
Yep.
there you go. And then the last one is the objective list theory, which is that the person doesn't view happiness based on pleasure versus pain or wanting versus attaining. Instead, it's about things that I find valuable. So it's very individual. So it could be to do with health and wellness. It could be to do with relationships. It could be to do with career accomplishment.
I've got the
or
really good
things
job and
like
now
that.
look better than everyone I went to school with.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm happy. Oh,
I suppose none of this really touches upon this kind of thing we were
No.
just saying there of if I'm happy.
I'm not really happy about things. I've noticed it before. I think because I've always, as soon as an opportunity arises, I always imagine the nth fuel of that working out well. So if it ever does work out well in any sense, I've already. Do you know what I mean? I've always thought.
You've
it
talked
through.
about that thing before.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding you correctly,
right.
I remember you saying that I'm almost happier if I don't put too much stock in things.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah,
The
no,
if I
future's hell,
expect
man.
the
Don't-
worst
don't
and then it
look at
happens, I'm not kind of too
Yeah.
crushed by it.
Do you not get like the intense delight of retail therapy? Like you buy a thing that you shouldn't really be buying because you don't need it, and just for a moment you just feel this crescendo of delight that's, swiftly replaced by, oh my god, that was 300 quid. I can't return
For
it.
Lego.
It might be, maybe. Sometimes it's Lego. Sometimes it's other plastic object. Sometimes a book.
That was sorry.
Honestly, there
Other
are books.
plastic objects. I
Yeah,
mean, I
there's-
saw Matt's facial reaction to that. But
Other
anyway.
toys. But then I wouldn't think that I wouldn't think that was as happiness. I think that was like a brief spark of joy, maybe a longer spark of joy,
like
small
a substitute.
Yeah.
Why do you
small
think happiness should be over a longer period of time than that?
I mean, that sounds like a nice thing. Yeah. But happiness doesn't sound to me really like a.
I can imagine you
sitting
sitting down in your local pub, getting a pint, and whatever day you've had, and you drinking it and thinking, God, that's amazing. And enjoying the whole pint, which would be you being happy for 20, 25 minutes.
Maybe. I think I'd mostly just be hate ignoring everyone else in there.
Every time.
This
He
is
managed-
definitely his topic, isn't it?
Ideally, I'd be in a room on my own,
Yeah.
and there's no one else there.
Because you always say this way, Nick, and he always wants to turn around and bang his head against the wall.
I am very clumsy.
Whichever way I think about this, I keep coming back to this idea that somehow it's to do with like a state of mind, and you having a particular response to whatever it might be out there, you know. So like that's that scenario you gave there of sitting there and just feeling pretty content with this pint or whatever for it. That suddenly you're just in a happy state, you're in a happy place, but that it's fleeting. I guess we move between lots of things. I will say one thing, even though I'm struggling to define it and everything else. I think one thing I have settled on for myself is that this, and it's a bit cliche, but that journey destination thing, I do think there's something to be said for seeing it as a goal, and I do think there seems to be a tendency for people, us, to see that as the optimum thing and not want everything else, and actually that causes more problems.
I think it does.
If you can't, I think we have to be what we are, and so maybe I think to me that's something about being happy and okay, is that recognizing that I'm going to be different things at different times. Time and time again, when someone's been able to say, yes, I am upset and I feel the sadness, or yes, I am angry and I feel angry and whatever else, then ironically that's what's needed to get back to feeling okay again, as opposed to not wanting to feel those things because I want to be happy.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Feels like a long way of saying it.
No,
but
I think that does make. I'm struck by the three definitions that you gave a minute ago, all of which don't describe what I instinctively think of happiness is, which is this thing to be attained. They all seem to describe happiness as being a way to view the things that you do as being positive rather than negative. So you're
well, the second two were a little bit attorney, weren't they? Because it was about
they were, but it's still deciding like what I want is I want to have a really good budgie. That's part of my good life. I want to have a really nice window. But it's getting listening. I want to have a job. I want to be able to cycle to work, whatever. But you could make those anything, and if you can retrain your brain to view the activities that you do achieve as being good things rather than just what you have to do to get through this nightmarish suck of a life, then you could regard yourself as happy just by retrain yourself to see the things that you do as being positive things that enhance your life.
I think some of it seems to be like we're talking about as though once you've got it, that's it, and I don't really see it like
happiness.
that. Yeah, it's like you're getting a great job. Well,
yeah.
What depends how the job works out,
Yeah.
And so to me, one of the things I find a lot of happiness is planning events and the lead up to that, and we're trying to work out how to do it, and then the actual event itself. But and that's quite good. But then it's finite.
That sounds like we talked about post-show crash before, haven't we? Where you do the show itself. Because I was going to mention at the time when I feel probably most free, and which I think I would describe as happy, is when on stage doing the show, because it's completely in the moment, not thinking about any other part of life. There's just this thing happening. It's quite silly. It's enjoyable, but is involving like my entire brain and body in doing. And that's lovely, but that just ends afterwards.
So it's this state that you're in temporarily, and there is something about letting go of lots of other things, isn't there? Which I think is a point to pick up in a little bit.
Yeah, I would ordinarily, I think, just thought of like creative flow, that kind of thing, which I enjoy immensely.
Maybe we should test this theory out. We should do like some kind of event where we lead up to it.
Oh no! But I know what that's like. I hate post-show crash. It's horrible.
Well, then we'd suddenly be kind of making it a doey thing rather than an experiencing thing. Wouldn't
Yeah, but what you really, if you want to do that, what you need to do is observe someone in their day-to-day life, and then just jab them occasionally. Go, were you happy a minute ago? Until I jabbed you in the ribs. It's like, well, I don't know now.
We
I'm
could get
really
some money
angry.
from the lottery commission, couldn't we?
We probably
and
could.
then we could go into those second-hand shops that sell all those signs about happiness and journeys and stuff,
That
and then
sounds
we could
legit.
put them all in like a big bonfire on November the 6th or something.
That
and
sounds
set
a
fire to them.
bonfire, just burn them all.
Yeah, but the
Love
day
fire.
after
Yeah,
November the
no,
5th,
I mean,
yeah.
I really like
Set
fire. That
fire
sounds
to them.
wonderful. Let's do that.
And watch your happiness signs go up in flames.
You know
Oh,
what?
wow.
That's reminded me of the difference between all the people at school or who I've met in life. Who,
I don't want you to set fire to.
yeah. I'd like to burn them all.
Wow.
It's going to be a really big Wicker Man festival. We're going to lure them all there. I was thinking about all the people that had dreams and ambitions, and a lot of their happiness was tied to nailing that ambition. It's become like a doctor, or I don't know what other people's dreams are. That's the best that I can come up with.
Yeah.
Being a doctor.
One of those theories was about kind
Getting
of
married,
attaining
having kids,
things,
all
wasn't
that
it?
sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And that seemed really clear. I've never really had any of those. So I'm not so much that I don't ever want things, but I've never had a plan or a particular desire. It's like, what I'd love to be an astronaut. That stuff's never really popped into my head. So I've never had that, I guess, that measurement thing. What I've got is what I've ended up with through luck and some sort of competencies. And I quite like those things. But maybe because I've never framed them as like what I've wanted most in the whole of my life, which is doing this particular set of things, then I don't have the measure as like, well, I've got this thing, therefore it makes me happy. Or because I've got this thing, therefore I am happy. I mean, getting the loft done was really good. I mean, that was a horrible thing to get
But
there.
I have to say though, if you were told 10 years ago where you were 10 years ago of if you go towards this, you can get what you've got now. You've described that as something you'd attain, didn't you?
I don't, yeah, but I probably would have just laughed at you and gone, well, those are all unattainable goals.
I know, but you've got them now.
Yeah, no, but not through. But again, not through any like skill set or,
Of course it
or
is.
intentionality. It's mostly
You've
through,
got them.
It's dumb luck. But
No,
I
it's
don't-
not dumb luck.
But I do
See,
wonder
that's
how
the thing. I think that's the
Oh.
angle. It isn't through dumb luck. It's through the fact that you are who you are.
But
And
I-
you've attained that through who you are as a person.
I think
And
it's dumb luck for all of us, and other people mistake dumb luck for being their own skill set.
Maybe it's some crazy blend of all sorts of things,
Maybe
which is where
so.
I tend to land. But
all those
I-
doctors who just luckily are really good at heart surgery is just amazing.
I think they are. They just luckily haven't killed that many people. I could do that. That sounds fine. But I'd get a much lower success rate. But I'd be happy with
a
it.
lower success
I'd
rate.
much lower. But I'd be happy because I'm a doctor. That's great.
right, well, there you go. So going back to your thing of two people in exactly the same circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one person could maybe have all of the things that they have were on a goal list and they've been trying to actively attain them.
Yeah.
And there's this question of, well, will they just want to attain more and all of that? And another person could have the same and maybe just feel happy, content with what they got. It is a cliche, but this happiness is an inside job thing. I think there's some truth in that, or it's about kind of your relationship to everything around you,
I
and
have
that's
to
what
stop
counts.
myself complaining and about what work I've got at the moment because this is what I wanted. You know, I mean, genuinely, and if again going back to that example, if someone said this will be you in 3 or 4 years' time, I would be beyond happy about it. You just get stuck in it, don't you? You're thinking. I think you almost sometimes you have to, if you can, if you're lucky enough to be able to step away from your current situation, look at it, and think. This is pretty good.
So there are things that we can do to increase our feeling, our state of happiness, and
Do you
sometimes
ever
it's
do that?
about like taking stock and trying to
Yeah.
be more appreciative and things like that. If you look at some of the stuff out there, the self-help stuff or the guidance on kind of how we can try and feel more happy and all of that, there's all the practical stuff around kind of managing stresses, blah 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 blah, setting goals, yada yada yada. But there's some of it around appreciation, isn't there? Of like. There's even things of starting each day with kind of affirmations, or like,
Old coffee.
or coffee. Does coffee make you happy?
In the morning it does. Yeah.
I'm not a coffee drinker, so can't appreciate that one. Maybe happiness is very individual. Oh, I'm sure it is actually, but
I mean, I think it is individual. It's plainly also a universal concept. We talk. Everyone talks about it. Don't
it
they?
is. It's a universal concept, but probably one which we all define, pursue, and kind of feel differently.
And it's probably very negatively affected by other people's impressions of their own happiness. It's why social media gets a lot of kicking for that. Is it, you see all these people like, oh, they look super happy. Well, that's one photograph, and for the rest of the whole day they were crying. But
They are not happy. You
They
should have a
stopped out of
column.
motorway services and expected little
You
chef.
should have a show on television.
I don't.
Hi,
should be a
Nick, I'm
motivational
out here, I'm having the
speaker.
greatest
think
time of
I-
my life.
I
Are
don't-
you really there?
Hi, I'm going to ruin your day. I don't think anyone
With
wants that.
reality.
Are you sure it's not ruined already?
But we see that, and we don't know the backstory. We don't know if that was true, and because I see plenty of friends around me are like, oh, I'm on a beach, it looks great. It's like, oh, that does look really cool. And I go, oh, maybe I want to be on a beach. And I remember beaches are quite dull unless you're in the water for a long time. You do those bits, you're like, but it's not like, why would I go to
There's
that?
sand everywhere.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, there's an ad.
it's
You're
coarse,
onto
it's
something
coarse and
there.
irritating. It gets
So there's
everywhere.
what we expect will make us happy versus the
Yeah.
reality of it. Then.
Yeah,
So
and-
I think expectation is definitely a key word in this conversation.
Yes, that's probably true, but our expectations are rarely framed by ourselves. I suspect, they're socially defined a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
But it's expectation that leads to disappointment or guilt or frustration and whatever else. I suppose it's not only, but I think it's like a Buddhist concept of happiness, isn't it? To be able to let go of all of that stuff.
That's the next grant that we should go for. You sat on a beach and see how long you last.
Oh God,
Just Nick unhappy on a
We could
beach.
Okay,
feed him margaritas, couldn't we?
I have questions and conditions like, are there rock pools? I'm all right. I like rock pools.
Oh, suddenly there are conditions
yeah,
now.
yeah, there are
Look,
conditions.
already conditions for happiness.
Right, happiness is
I'll be
conditional.
happy
so
if.
there's a rock pool there, and is it a good beach for like beach combing? Can I find random stuff that other people valued that is now mine?
We could leave your stuff there and not tell you about it. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but if I don't find it, then I'll be devastated.
What,
And
just
that would-
make it a treasure hunt?
Yeah.
See, there's a reason for being on a beach. That sounds great for a bit. I don't know. I don't know. Well, you led me there. I feel like I've been tricked by your expectations for me.
But you see, that's the thing about mental health, isn't it? That people look at other people and say, well, they've got the job, the car, the kids, the whatever else. They must be happy, and that's got nothing to do with it. That's pretty much what you were alluding to before.
I think, I think you're probably right. It's easy to define happiness by what other people have, but I think what Wes was talking about was the need to go, well, I've got all this stuff. Shouldn't I be happy about it? But then, if I decide to be happy about it, then does that just make me happy?
Well, I think that's the thing is about should be happy. Well, you're fighting a losing battle
no.
there again, aren't you? Because you're doing this comparison thing and
Your bloody shoulda, woulda, couldas.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about this kind of. It's about where I'm at. It's about where I land with it that makes the difference, and maybe there is something to be said about this absence of unhelpful stuff. That might not be absence of problems and everything else, but maybe it's the absence of comparison and I don't know, unrealistic expectation or self-criticism or whatever. Maybe that's something that means one person is happier in inverted commas than another.
Maybe so. Because I think when I'm at my most, I guess, peaceful or content, without using the H word.
I was waiting for that.
No, we're avoiding that just in case I accidentally stumble upon it. I like go and sit like in our library and just read a book in an evening with a whiskey or a cup of tea with a lava lamp on and a little side light, and there's nothing else going on.
Well,
And I
you
like
gave
that
the
a lot.
example of the show, though, as well. To me, they're kind of similar in that you were completely in that moment and there was an absence of other stuff that may be unhelpful.
I guess so.
I start to touch upon this kind of things we can do to increase our happiness. So I also looked up something related to that just to see what it makes us think of.
That's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
What things?
Look on Google that.
It-
Maybe back
Googling
on
Things
the
I could do to make me happy.
Well, I bet you it's something that people Google a lot.
Probably is.
But on this list, I suppose there are things that allude to these different theories of happiness. One of them was about just being in a happy state most of the time. One of them was about getting what we want, and one of them was finding meaning. But some of these habits they say could make you happy. Maybe I'll just rattle off some of them. Some of them aren't too surprising, but like there's exercise and lifestyle choice stuff in the mix. But smiling, there you go. So there's kind of saying, if I inhabit kind of a happy place, then maybe I'm more likely to adopt
I always
it.
find that people say you can do that, smile more. It has a positive effect on you.
And the same for
But if you're
positive
feeling
affirmations.
miserable, it's
well,
just
yeah,
like-
exactly.
Go on, give us a smile, love.
There's
Yeah,
stuff
everyone loves
around
that.
diet and lifestyle and exercise, but there's stuff about being grateful, which we kind of
Yeah.
alluded to a minute ago. So maybe it's unhelpful to get completely hung up on what we don't have, and so balancing it out to appreciate what we do have. So maybe that's the theory behind that. Giving a compliment, showing acts of kindness to others.
I think all of that, they just feel like if you're in a place where you're unhappy, I'm not so sure that
Acknowledging the
works.
unhappy moments then, what about that one? That's kind of what I was saying there about being okay with where you're at. And
Yeah.
ironically, that means that suddenly you're in a better place.
Well, I mean, that provokes contrast for yourself, doesn't it? It provokes that self-comparison. And yeah, I guess if you can identify, like, a time, this is really bad, then you're, by comparison, uplifting other parts of your life, possibly even into the realm of contentment, say, or maybe even
It kind
happiness.
of just gives a frame of reference.
Yeah,
a
it's like, well, that was
comparison point.
bloody awful, but yes,
Yeah, well,
wasn't
there's
this bloody awful.
Journaling,
That was-
journaling's on here, so maybe that's for that reason, because
Mhm.
we can keep a balanced view of the
That
ups
is
and the
useful.
downs.
I'll give it that.
Connection, seeing friends, decluttering, planning, ditching your
Decluttering,
phone,
Nick. Try that one.
That's madness, Matt, and that
Yeah.
only leads to suffering and pain.
getting into nature, exploring meditation, considering therapy.
That's a really interesting list of things that might make you happier, because they all sort of sound like things that you would do if you were happy. If you see what I mean. Like if you were happy,
So it's kind of saying
do those
inhabit that happy space
yourself
and you
up.
will
I'm going to
become
declutter
happy.
this house.
Fake it till you make it.
yeah, self-deception. It's the only way to be happy.
There's all the things like taking care of yourself, but there's stuff about letting go of grudges, letting go of certain bits of bobs of things.
It's hard to let go of grudges until the person dies, really, isn't it?
Even then, it's tricky.
It's true. Although that means the ultimate win, obviously, for a grudge. Like, I've won now. Yeah, I've
As you
outlast.
stamp the dirt down under your foot.
Yeah.
You two are the wrong people to talk about
surely
happiness.
surely
with, I
there's
think.
nothing happier than outliving your enemies.
Killing them in the first place.
Dangerous. We'll talk about that offline.
That's another subject. Where are we landing with this?
well,
Like, what
I-
are people thinking as we've kind of talked about all these different angles?
Well,
and
I'm really intrigued by that list that suggests to me that happiness is sort of performative, but if you believe in your performance, then you're happy. That's how that list struck me, which might still be very simple.
There's a lot of it suggesting that we can be happy if we just don't do the things or focus on the things related to
We just get
the
it together.
concept of unhappiness
Well,
or
if you
whatever.
just get it
so-
together and recognise that our lives are not too bad, then we can be
Yeah, I
happy.
suppose in one way or another, yeah. There's
That's
a lot about
fascinating.
expectation.
That's all the sort of negative side of mental health, isn't it? As well, when people say the same thing within mental health, that you shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't. It's just,
Well, that's another
it
should and a
mean
shouldn't,
anything,
isn't it? You know, because that's a fast route to minimising stuff, isn't it? Well, I should feel happy because I'm not as bad. My life's not as bad as this, that, or the other. Well, that doesn't sound healthy and kind of.
It's true. It stops you perhaps being in the very darkest place in relationship to that, but it doesn't get you higher up. Doesn't get you higher up that scale of happiness. So my life is not as bad as someone else's. Doesn't make me happy, but it stops me being less unhappy, perhaps.
I don't know. To me, it's just a way of pointing a finger at myself and saying I'm not feeling how I should feel, and I just don't think that's helpful. I do think there's something to be said that I need to maybe acknowledge all of my feelings. If I can do that, then maybe I'm going to feel generally happier most of the time. I don't know. There's something in that for me.
I like that. I like, as always, the idea of trying to be conscious of your own existence and try and notice when you are happy or you're sad, and notice your emotions rather than just letting it be a morass that you exist within, because it can be hard to step back from yourself and not necessarily to even find a reason for why you feel the way you feel, but to recognise that you do feel something or feel nothing. That's got to be a good thing in general.
I suppose inherent within that, there must be some acknowledgement that I'm not going to be happy all the time then, and maybe being at peace with that means I'm going to be.
I've tried to vocally recognise to my partner and then kids and stuff at points when I feel depressed or when I know in fact it's nothing to do with anything. It's just that.
Do you do the opposite? Do you vocally recognise when things are feeling particularly good?
People can see. I'm
We don't need to acknowledge
annoying.
that one. You're annoying when you're
Oh
happy.
yeah, like the other morning
That's
when
true.
when
Kids say that a lot.
when someone's asleep, and Katie got into bed and she was asleep, and I stuck in the Proclaimers song, "Please Don't Turn Out Like Your Mother," and started dancing around the room to it. That's
oh
where
my
we're
God,
at.
I would want you to be less happy if that's what I live with.
Apparently, that's not a good way to wake up. Who knew?
Oh, that's horrifying.
So there's something in how we understand happiness. That's what it is. That maybe means. Well, it will impact our own relationship with it, I suppose, isn't it? So, like, if I'm going along thinking that this is the way to be happy, then I'm only going to feel happy if this is the case.
That's
I
risky,
suppose.
isn't it? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that feels like a high-risk proposition because whatever it is that you're aiming for could
Well, it's
easily
dependent on it then, isn't
it
it?
could easily miss or fail.
Yeah.
But at the same
There's
ti-
all the things we were talking about where, like, which kind of makes sense. It's like, if I'm trying to take care of myself, if I'm trying to have a balanced point of view, if I'm trying to be mindful of lifestyle and stress and appreciation and things like that, then that must mean I'm more likely to feel more positively and better most of the time.
I guess I think I've been most struck by your sort of, they're comparing it with other people. You know, if we see that what makes one person happy is being, I don't know, an astronaut, you're like, wow, but I quite like just opening a box of Lego and building stuff. Like, just should I not be happy with that? Is the thing that strikes me most. You know, are my desires and the things that make me happy so small that maybe that's not really happiness at all? It's not enough to be happy.
I'm setting my bar too low.
Yeah, you know, I could build a Meccano set or something. That's much harder, but I wouldn't like that because it's difficult.
The commonality between a few of the things you mentioned, though, was that you were just in that moment and you were letting go of all sorts of other stuff. So there's something to be said for that, surely. And that's different for different people.
It's true. I could be like a billionaire on Twitter just raving madness, but so in the moment that I'm entirely happy with it.
Well, exactly.
Maybe he
so
is.
I don't know whether we're getting anywhere with fully defining this, but we've certainly opened a few interesting threads.
It comes across that it's a completely, which is obviously completely, utterly personal matter, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so one man's happiness is another man's what?
Please finish that sentence. I'm fascinated by where that's
I'm
going.
wondering where this is
Unhappiness.
going as well.
I think you're going to say like crocodile or something.
Yeah, so actually, you know, you could decide that actually for me to feel happy, I want to achieve this, that, and the other. And I suppose it's going to go two ways. You're going to achieve it and feel happy in theory, or you're not, and you're going to be disappointed, frustrated, whatever else. But I could decide, actually, my focus is just to wake up every day, be okay, and feel appreciative for what I do have and everything else. And maybe I am happy with that. And maybe some people find happiness in different things, like, well, I'm sure it's true, you know, finding happiness in religion or finding happiness in relationship or whatever.
You see it with all hobbies.
It's just going to be
you
different
know,
things.
All the hobbies that
isn't
make no sense to you because you're like, I don't see what you see in that, but well, they probably see exactly the same thing that you see in a hobby, but just for a different topic. I'm really intrigued by it being a plainly universal property that we all talk about,
But
and it has
on
no
the flip
no
side,
useful
very
definition.
individual. Yeah.
Really unhelpful.
There is
thing
something
to-
quite striking about that. It's a universal concept, but very individual, isn't
and
it?
so wildly unhelpful to talk about. You know,
And how
as a
different it
thing
is, because it's
socially.
classed as an emotion, I guess, but it's so different from all the other emotions, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't feel. Yeah, and the more we talk about it, the less it feels like an emotion.
It's
it feels like
something else.
a description of satisfaction or something, which feels like a really bleakly utilitarian way to. A little bit like your first definition: is there more pleasure than pain in your life? Which is like the real.
Well, that's like a
real
good enough
heart-
thing.
Yeah,
you
it
could read
is.
that as just, well, as long as it was good enough, then I'm okay.
Well, that's the heart of the grimmest of
But
utilitarian.
then someone could have
concepts.
just a...
More than 60-40 though.
Yeah, well, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Is that important?
You know,
It's to some people.
it's
Okay.
some people, it's like, well, I can enjoy a lot of small things, but in order to balance that, I can have one really bad thing happen to me. But that's okay because that still means in general I'm happy.
Well, that's the good
And
enough
that's-
theory,
I
yeah.
guess it is, yeah.
Well, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like the good is how I would want it to go. The bad are the blips in the road, but as long as it's not so devastating, I can get back to the good. The ugly is where I just never have a chance of coming back, and the crap is too constant.
You know, I think the final thing that makes you think of is that although all these emotions are kind of internal, they're all affected by the external world. But this one, maybe more than the others, feels like one that if we can grab hold of it, we can change our perspective towards it without reference to the outside world more easily or it's more accessible than some of the other things.
I don't know, because just about this grabbing hold of it or letting go of it stuff made me think of anger straight away. So I think different people have different relationships with anger, don't they? So you were joking earlier about it, about your enemies and all that kind of stuff, but I suppose there could be things that make people universally angry, or you would expect people get angry about it, but someone might be able to put it down and move on, and someone might not be able to.
Yep, maybe that is a normal thing.
Maybe, have we done one about anger?
We should do, shouldn't we?
If we haven't, we definitely should, or we
Yeah.
should revisit it with new eyes.
I don't mean to be rude, but I reckon we've probably got it in us to do a really good
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
Have we not done Pointless Incandescent Rage yet? It seems baffling.
Good title.
You can't do anything with this but feel hatred. Yeah.
So where have we actually landed with this then? I suppose it's time for closing thoughts.
Do you know what? I don't know whether it is ironic or whether it's just not, but the three of us seem to be in probably the happiest places individually together. I mean, you know, we have done for a while. We all seem fairly... So that's me assuming it from the outside. We all seem fairly okay, or more than okay.
I suspect I'm bad at recognising what happiness counts as for me, because at the moment I'm enormously entertained, which is probably, by any reasonable definition, being quite happy. I wonder if I just don't have good definitions of what that means for me.
Maybe there are just lots of little things that feed into this state of happiness.
Yep. Yeah.
Whereas if I'm pissed off, aren't I? Am I? Oof. I don't know.
Mostly just sultry and simmering, aren't you?
I think we could definitely do an experiment on you, though, Nick.
Oh,
No, it'd be great. It'd be great.
It would be interesting to do that, but it would also be interesting to just go around and do a survey and ask loads of people what they think happiness is.
We could have Nick in a room, and then we could find out 10 things, which could be things or people or occasions that would make him feel happy, and one after the next, like a beer, and then some famous person who comes and says, "Nick, you're lovely," and then just carry it on for like an hour and see where we get with that. That'd be brilliant.
God, I find it so hard to imagine that would end with me being happy.
That's really the goal.
Stop being nice to me.
I think I've ended up feeling quite happy
Today.
Wow,
Do you know why? Because if you can figure that out, maybe we've cracked it, at least for you.
I think it aligns with other things we talked about. It's about being focused on the thing that we're doing and being amused by it.
Or if we could just get out of our own way,
yeah,
maybe we can be happy.
Maybe it's just mind your presence, Wes.
Maybe it
it's
is.
Just you, Wes.
Maybe it's just me.
Just you.
Not
It's
Matt.
not Matt.
No, okay.
Matt plays music loud in the morning.
So when you get back in the van and
not
drive
a-
off from here,
It'll
this
be midnight
is
as
going to
hell.
slip away.
just
is it?
silence.
Oh no!
I hope so.
Why is he annoying when he's happy?
Not as
I
much.
d-
You
I don't
seem
know.
particularly giddy and
I've never
light-hearted.
experienced it, so
It's a shock. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel fairly silly, which is nice.
Let's see if we can settle on a definition each then to finish off.
Oh, we should say it together and see if they're the same.
That's what I was going to say.
So I think happiness is mostly a matter of deciding whether or not the things that you enjoy are enough to make you happy.
I think happiness for me in a moment is not worrying about all those things that are in your head that you should or shouldn't do, or that are bugging you, and doing something that you really enjoy at the time without that distraction.
I'm still struggling, but I think it's probably some lovely blend of letting go of unhelpful stuff, appreciating what is, being in the moment, and probably some combination of this connection, enjoyment, kind of satisfaction vibe. I don't know. I don't have a definition, basically.
I'm happy to just generate definitions for a while.
Yeah, all right. This is
But-
right up your alley.
Oh, I'd like defining.
I think the thing that it's a universal concept but is very individual kind of rings true, doesn't it? And maybe it could be different things at different times.
does.
Mm.
Oh, why isn't there just one way of being happy?
God,
Wouldn't that
wouldn't
be
it
easier for everyone?
straightforward?
Boring.
Oh, maybe.
We should say before we go that the next episode is going to be online, isn't it?
Yep,
And then the one after that is going to be the Edinburgh Festival Fringe special
that's
live
right. Yeah,
Oh,
in
yeah.
Edinburgh, obviously.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. I look forward to that. Yep, that'll be
Make
great.
sure we go there.
Okay, well,
All
until
right then.
next time then.
Yeah.
Take care of yourselves and each other.
Jerry.
We just ended you snorting into the microphone.
Exhausted with some great
If you've been affected
reasons.
by anything that we've talked about tonight, that's cool. We were kind of hoping you would be. If you haven't been affected by anything tonight, then that's great too. You're probably fine. Of course, if you say you're fine, there's a good chance you aren't. So you might also have been affected. And if you've been affected before, you probably will be again. Please talk to someone. It can get better, and together we can survive. We are what we overcome.
This poor little boy, grounded by the sun, Baylor by his side for some big stride.